Why are so many people converting to Islam? Question mark. Part 1. This is a video by Mat Nokizi. I'm new to this channel, interested to see what he has to say. Without further ado, let's watch.
Islamist,
Islamic,
Muslim Quran,
Islamic,
Muslim, Islamic,
Islamic Muslims,
Islam,
Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I've seen some videos surface on YouTube, on different platforms, as to why so many people are reverting to Islam. You know, obviously I semi-recently reverted to Islam and it's been the best choice I've ever made. And I believe that I have a bit of a different insight into why exactly people are reverting. So I'm just going to take you through all of the reasons that I can think of. I believe there's like 4 or 5. So I would say the number one thing that comes to mind is social media, and just media in general. I think the way that the Western media has portrayed Islam is absolutely terrible. It is disgraceful. People are starting to see through that, and especially with social media, how it's used nowadays, how it's kind of normalizing Muslims in a sense, because up until very recently you kind of assumed that a Muslim was an Arab or a Middle Eastern, and you didn't really comprehend that those people only make up about 15% of Muslims, which is strange when you actually think about it. The top 5 most populated Muslim majority countries, Southeast Asia, South Asia and Africa, none of them are in the Middle East. Strange. A lot of Muslim creators coming out, a lot of them were born, say for example, in the UK or in the Western world, and I think that's important. That's kind of why I started my channel as well, is because I wanted to portray a sense of you don't need to look a certain way to be Muslim, especially if it's from, you know, a previous life. For example, I'm covered in tattoos. But yeah, the reason I started this channel was to show that, you know, you can have tattoos if it's from, you know, before you've reverted, and you can look a certain way and you can do this and that, you can be from a certain place, and as soon as you take your shahada, you're now a Muslim, you're part of the brotherhood or sisterhood, and that's amazing. So I think social media has really highlighted that. Even say for example hijabis, is like, I remember before, not even too long ago, like people would look at hijabis or a niqabi or someone who wears a burqa and just be like, whoa, that is so alien. But now it's commonplace to see a hijabi walking down the street. Linking in with the whole sort of point of social media is that I've seen so many influencers or celebrities who have converted to Islam, and although their reasons might be a bit different, it might have been life events, it might have been they have a friend who's Muslim and who introduced them to Islam, or it might have been they did their own research and come across it randomly. Whatever it was, now they are the reason that other people are reverting, which is beautiful in itself. Say for example you're someone who loves boxing, you've always been a fan of Mike Tyson, and he used to live this extravagant, crazy lifestyle. Sounds kind of familiar to me, to be fair, not to the same degree obviously. He used to live this lifestyle and used to think, oh, like, you know, he's a bit wild, he's a bit like crazy or whatever, and then all of a sudden you see that he's way calmer now, he's Muslim, and you'll be like, wait, he doesn't look like he should be Muslim. And then you start to do your own research and you hear him talk about it, and although he's not the most practicing Muslim, if you're a big fan of him, you'd probably do some research into that, right? I think that sort of opens the door, and this is just one example of many. There are so many different celebrities. There was a famous fashion model who also recently reverted as well, and there's also that famous gypsy son of a billionaire who's an entrepreneur himself. All of these people just don't necessarily look like they should be Muslim, but they're embracing Islam, and I think this is, as soon as you break down that barrier of what a Muslim should look like, then it's open to everyone. Another,
I guess that's the point, right? Because, okay, first, when the title is why are so many people converting to Islam, I thought it would be something like because it's the truth, etc., right? But I think what he's exploring here is the factor that trigger, you know, before people for people to become interested, to learn, to discover, etc., and hence they will find the truth. But meaning what's the barrier that initially there but is broken down, hence you know, people explore Islam, etc., right? So what's the trigger point? So yeah, social media, and the point behind social media here is that the familiarity or the related, meaning you relatability, right? Relatability, meaning how can you relate, or something that can be perceived to be alien or relatable, right? And when you see, oh, there's Muslim from all walks of life, from all races, from all background, from even, you know, those who seems to be close to you or someone you look up to, right? So interesting point.
Important point to mention, and this one I don't want to talk about too much. I don't want to mention certain things. There is a Western sort of agenda, and we all know what it is. There's like 2 different main components of it, and it's terrible, and both are being pushed in schools, in media, in TV, online, everywhere, in the workplace, everywhere, and you can't escape it. And I think for a lot of people, Muslims are starting to move out of the West. That's one thing, but also Western people, not every Western person is a typical liberal. I think a lot of Western people who live in Europe, live in the UK, live in America, a lot of those people are very much still traditional traditional. Like, they still have those traditional values. They may be, I don't know, Christian, but they're not necessarily practicing. They may be Jewish, but not practicing. They might even be atheists and just not believe in these certain ideologies that the Western media and government and whoever else is forcing upon our kids. I say our kids, I haven't even got any kids, but you know what I mean. People see Islam as the sort of last stand, the one religion that isn't afraid to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. We are not going to let our kids be indoctrinated into this. We are not going to let the government force this upon us. And you can see this especially all over the UK. I've seen it in America as well, where they have put some weird, I don't even want to say exactly what it is, but weird books in the library for kids to read, and parents are standing up and saying, no, enough is enough. People
he said about Islam is the last religion standing up, right? And my viewers, you know, most of the Christian that view my video, I think, come from the US. Some from Europe, but most, I think, from the US. And I wonder whether that is true for you, for your locality especially, because I think in some major countries in the Europe and the UK, what he says seems to be true. My experience in France, you know, there's a lot of churches, but I don't think there's a lot of Christians left. Hence, Islam becomes, you know, like the last defender of, you know, traditional values, as he pointed out. But I think in many places in the US, the Christian society is still, the Christian society still, you know, hold on to that value, I think. At least in certain region. I assume. I've been in the US when I was very, very small. So after that, I'm not very familiar with the US.
Islam is intolerant. You submit your will and your beliefs and your whole life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's one God and you submit to Him. Doesn't matter who else tells you what to do, the government, whatever. You submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and this last one.
Okay, and that point, from those who sees that as a positive thing, I think you can see how it is being positive. But I think some people actually really afraid of Islam because of that, because your how to say, your allegiance is to God, and if a country want to control you, you know, and that is some of the issue where in certain region in the Europe, I think they see that your unwillingness to comply with the ruler can become a threat, right? So that's a whole discussion. I'm not saying that Muslim should rebel, etc. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the idea, that very idea, seems, you know, terrifying for some. That your utmost allegiance is to God, not to the country.
It's a bit controversial, links in with the whole celebrity thing and the social media thing, but there's one man who sticks out as probably the biggest revert that I can think of in the modern era, and that is Mr. Andrew Tate. Now, everybody has different opinions on Andrew Tate. Say whatever you want. He is a Muslim. You have to accept that. None of us can say he is not a Muslim. From what I've seen, especially on social media, is that there's been a massive influx of reverts, you know, of young men usually who have reverted because of him. You can kind of tell that it's because of him, because all of their other content is to do with red pill, masculinity, etc., etc., and they haven't ever, and they don't even really have any Muslim friends. They haven't been exposed to Islam, but then all of a sudden they're, you know, reverting to Islam, which I'm not trying to put that down at all. I totally understand where they're coming from, and sometimes it takes just that one person to expose you to something for you to actually do some research into it, so not judging at all. And overall, I think it's a really good thing. I think it's amazing that somebody who has that much influence is positively contributing to young men and allowing them to see Islam for what it is. It's such a beautiful religion, and a lot of these young men wouldn't have known about it, or may have negative perceptions either from personal experience or from the media, whatever it was. The only concern that I have is that some of these young men are only doing it for Andrew Tate because they want to be. I remember when I was a kid and I would have like idols or whatever and stuff for a while, and I would somewhat worship them, and I would want to do everything that they did. Say for example, it was a footballer, Cristiano Ronaldo. The football boots that he wore, I wanted to wear it. I used to get my, well, not the most expensive ones, but the cheaper versions of it, I used to get my parents to buy. I used to wear the same football kit, same number on the back of my shirt. I used to do all of that, and I feel like some of these new revert Muslims are in some way doing that. Now, obviously, inshallah, I hope they're not, and I hope that they stay strong, stay steadfast, stay practicing. If that's the case, that is amazing. But I do have some worries that, say for example, if Andrew Tate all of a sudden one day comes out and says, I'm not Muslim anymore, I don't know if all of those reverts would stay practicing, if they would stay Muslim. That's the only concern I have. But overall, it's been massively positive. And yeah, I think those...
That is interesting. I never would have guessed that Andrew Tate will be one of the points highlighted in the video as a factor for people becoming Muslim. No, I'm not sure whether, because me living here in Southeast Asia, right, I'm not really I don't really understand the level of influence Andrew Tate have. How much of influence he has? I assume it's not, you know, for those who are not connected to the internet that much, I don't think his influence is that high. I'm not sure, but I don't think. But I think those who are in a specific discourse where he seems to be championing, right? I don't know, masculinity or something. Because I have some perception, but from afar, so I'm not. I don't think I can be a fair judge of what he is, etc. But this is trying to understand. So I think for those who follow that wavelength or that movement, so to speak, that resonates with them, suddenly he become Muslim, and you know those values seems to be in line, etc. I don't know. That become a trigger point for many guys to become Muslim. That's from what I understand here. And he also make a disclaimer or caveat that there's a concern if, you know, they become Muslim just because that figure become Muslim, and what if he afterwards becomes something else. That's a fair and valid concern, I think. But hopefully, because we have history where some people becoming Muslim for quote-unquote wrong reason, because Shakirit in Malaysia, we have a figure that becoming Muslim because he wanted to marry a Muslim girl, and you cannot marry a Muslim girl if you are not a Muslim, right? So he converted because he want to marry, but afterwards he got the hidayah and he become a really good da'i, where he actively invite others to Islam, becoming a very good, you know, a da'i. So, you know, a trigger point can trigger the starting domino, but hopefully, inshallah, the domino falls down and until the point that you actually understand Islam and you actually practice Islam, especially for those who follow and get into Islam because a celebrity becoming Muslim. And I do hope and make dua that all of those celebrity actually becoming fully practicing Muslim, even though I know many will have a big struggle. Even Muslim, okay, in our country we have Muslim community that brought up not so much, you know, practicing, and they become celebrities, and in the world of celebrities is very different, the hedonism, etc., right? And when some of them, you know, have their hijrah, they have the hidayah or something, and then they want to become a practicing Muslim, the challenges is very big because the surrounding is not helping, you know, especially in the world of you know, glamorous world. It's very toxic there. So some of them survive by exiting, you know, the celebrity world, while others, they have to build up strength with some of them, you know, that have the same intention, group together and build strength, right? And some of them do not survive because, you know, with the surrounding day in day out, they are being dragged back to the old life, right? So looking at those who revert, you know, in any world where the surrounding is not really helping, I really hope, I make dua that they find strength, you know, with a good surrounding. But anyway,
these are the main reasons I could really think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd be interested in hearing your guys' opinions, so leave it in the comment section below. I'm going to pin a comment, so just reply to that or just leave a comment somewhere. Yeah, see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So yeah, that's interesting video, interesting insight about what he thought of the factors for, you know, many revert. Interesting, especially the Andrew Tate part. I didn't expect that, and interesting. It shows that, you know, position of influence can really become, you know, a good trigger point for many others. So from that perspective, I guess good guys should actually fulfill or fill up those position of influence, right? Rather than letting, you know, those worldly craze people filling up those spots, I guess. What do you think? Thank you for watching. See you next time.